The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Ned Dale, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources of Hilton Central School District. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, Mike, for the opportunity.
We talked off camera a little bit about you came to Hilton in 2021, and that was at the height of, we had COVID. There's a lot of things going on. But let's reverse and circle back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your family, mom and dad, where you were born, any siblings you got, wife, children. Take it away.
I actually born in Boston and grew up in Webster, New York. My parents moved here shortly after I was born. My father was the president of all of the billboards in Rochester, and I would say shortly into elementary school, my sister headed off to Cornell and played volleyball at Cornell, and my brother eventually ended up at Dayton University after he graduated from Webster as well in '89. And my parents had kind of split up. I actually moved in ninth grade to Miami while they tried to repair their relationship.
Ninth grade?
Ninth grade from Webster to Miami, big change. But again, that taught me a lot about the world and what was out there. And so then after ninth grade, my mom and I moved back to Rochester where, again, she was just an amazing lady. She was the strength of our family. She has been passed away for about 10 years now. But I think my brother and sister and she worked 3 jobs as a single mom to make sure that everybody had what we needed. And first and foremost was education. And so when my sister was at Cornell, she went to bat for some additional financial aid. And when my brother was at Dayton, she had the admissions and financial aid people on the horn to make sure that my brother could stay and finish at Dayton. He finished and went to law school at Northeastern. He's a very successful attorney in Boston, and my sister practices medicine here in Rochester.
So your sister went to Cornell and now practices medicine. What type of medicine does she have?
Yeah, she does internal medicine. Her and her husband both have internal medicine practices here in Rochester. And again, we've all stayed in the area. My brother does live in Boston, but my sister and I have been here, for almost our whole lives afterwards.
I don't really sense any Bostonian accent out of you.
It can pop up now.
It does?
It can pop up, especially when you get into a Sox game, you get pretty excited, or go to a Harvard football game. That's something that's near and dear to our hearts in our Dale family.
Tell me a little bit. Your dad, you said, was a president of billboards?
Yeah. So all the billboards in Rochester, when billboards used to be painted, their corporation, Lamar Outdoor Advertising and Amelia Outdoor Advertising, was on Park Ave, and they hired tons of painters. Artists that lived in the Park Ave area came in and painted billboards before they were printed with computers. So the printing business kind of took over the billboard industry, and painters went away, and unfortunately, so did that business. It was kind of taken over and eliminated, and his position was ultimately eliminated.
Now, you talked a little bit about mom and dad split up, and you went to Miami with her.
I did in ninth grade. My parents tried to get back together, and my father was down there. He picked up another billboard job, and they tried to work things out, but unfortunately couldn't work it out. And so my mom and I decided it was best for me to come back. My sister was in medical school at the time at University of Rochester, and my brother was at Dayton, and so we moved back to Webster.
I'm sorry. Give me the ages of the three of you.
Yep.
Oldest, middle, youngest.
Yep. My sister is 7 years older than I am, and my brother is 5 years older than I am, and I'm the baby. Baby of the family.
Now, you went to Webster, you said, right?
Yep. 1989.
89 graduate?
It was a great class. 160 kids in Webster at the time. that I graduated with, because it was one high school.
One high school. How many years after did they split up into Thomas and Schrader?
If I remember correctly, I think it was 96 or 97
Okay.
before they split the schools again.
And I'm sorry, sometimes I'm writing things down, but you went to what college?
I actually started at Bowling Green,
Yeah.
out in Ohio. I was a big hockey kid. I loved hockey very much. Grew up playing hockey, played in high school. Went out to Bowling Green, had a great experience. They had won the national championship in 1984. And so I think there was some name recognition there, and we loved going to the games. I actually became friends with some of the players and had a great experience. And ultimately, I needed to make some changes in the position. I was borrowing quite a bit of money to pay for college, and ultimately decided to come back and graduated from St. John Fisher
Okay.
in 93.
93. Bowling Green, you played hockey at that school, correct?
I did not.
Okay.
That's a Division One.
I was going to ask you the next
yeah,
Division 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, no, I played at the, I took classes every semester so I could continue to play. And we had some great experiences. Some of the guys played on the team. The assistant coaches were the coaches and professors. They were so much fun to play with. But just being around, the hockey area and the arena was something that I wanted to continue. Wasn't going to play at that level, but had a ton of fun doing it.
Yeah. So you Bowling Green, that's in Ohio?
In Ohio, yep, just south of Toledo, about an hour south of Detroit.
I think Coach Monfiletto would be impressed with your moves from back then.
Coach Monfiletto would have been glad to have me on the defense. And we had a great team in Webster. Again, I still see some of the guys that I played hockey with, but I do not play men's league hockey. I just know better than doing that.
Did you, what other clubs were you in high school? Any other sports?
Yeah, I played lacrosse.
Lacrosse?
I played lacrosse. Yeah,
Okay.
No, I was actually, I tell the story. I love music. So music is something that can change your mood in a moment. After a tough day, you get in the car, you turn on a great song, and it can really pick you up. I can remember in 6th grade, I was on percussion, and I remember Silent Night was a big part of the Christmas concert,
Yep.
and I was on the triangle. And my teacher, unfortunately, didn't have the faith in me that I had. So he taped my triangle when I got to the concert that night.
So it wasn't live?
It just didn't make a lot of noise. And then when I got to the spring concert, I'll never forget. There was a song called "Jamaican Me Crazy,"
Yeah.
and I was on the maracas, and I was going to be the main beat. And when I got to the concert, there were about 3 beads left in my maraca from the 50 that was really making a lot of noise. He took most of the beads out. And at the end of my 6th grade concert, he said, "There's a really great course for you. It's called general music." So my music career ended there. But music is something that I absolutely love. And I love everything from Metallica to country to 60s to, anything. Acoustical music is something that I love to listen to.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you think he removed the beads from the maracas on purpose?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the triangle was taped for a reason. I think I had more confidence in my abilities than he had.
When he taped the triangle, was it you playing it on the tape?
Yeah. No, he taped like it with hockey
Oh,
tape.
he taped
so it
it,
didn't
not-
make it. It didn't make the noise that it was supposed to.
Because I always thought like he
No, it wasn't
audio
recorded.
taped it, so
No.
when it played, you couldn't get out there banging it like a.
No, it
Bass
was
drum.
taped, so it didn't make a lot of noise. So adding further injury to insult to injury.
Yeah.
But again, you know what? Again, I was lucky to go to Webster in a great school district and had great experiences. But my music career was over there.
Tell me a little bit more about growing up in Boston, because obviously I was teasing you earlier about the accent. Boston, proud people there, proud Red Sox, proud Patriots. Tell me about growing up.
Oh yeah. So I started to grow up in Boston, moved here to Webster, and but went to Boston every summer. We went to the Cape. My parents grew up in Boston. One grandfather lived in Wellesley, which is just outside the city, and my dad's side grew up in Watertown.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother lives in Hingham, which is along the South Shore. But one of the things that was neat as a kid is our grandfather announced for Harvard football for 63 years. I think he missed 3 or 4 games in 63 years. And my brother, he died very unexpectedly. I think it was probably 91. And my brother was in law school at the time, and he had been the spotter for my grandfather during law school. And at the funeral, my grandmother says to the athletic director, because they presented my grandfather with what's called the Major H. It's a prestigious honor from Harvard. If you get a Major H sweater, an award, and that I believe he was buried with. And my grandmother says, wouldn't my grandson be the perfect next announcer, seeing that you've only had one other announcer at Harvard? And my brother's done it for, I think, 36 years. So we're looking to get to 100 years of Dale announcing Harvard football.
You also sent me an article, which I will put the link down in our comment section. Don't you try to do a spot once a game?
Yeah, I do. So I spot for my brother once a year with my sister's husband, who played football at Colgate. And so we go down. One year it was in Fenway, and they provided my brother-in-law and I with all access passes. So I had the pleasure of visiting the Red Sox dugout, the locker room. I made a call to the bullpen. I had some once-in-a-lifetime pictures from Fenway that I'll never again maybe get. Although this year, Harvard-Yale is back in Fenway in November. So hoping to see that game again.
What's it like when you're a spotter? Like, how does that go? You just stand next to the announcer, be like, 51 made the tackle? Like,
yeah, so it's really interesting. My brother has kind of a setup and a microphone in front of him. And then my brother-in-law and I, we sit on either side of him. One watches the offense, one watches the defense.
Okay.
And so we say number 88. And my brother knows most of the players, maybe not the away players. So he'll have the sheet in front of him, and then he'll push the button on the tackle, number 88. And so it's a great time. And the view from the press box at Harvard actually overlooks the entire city of Boston. So there is no better view of Harvard, and Boston in general.
Does your brother have one of those booming announcer voices?
Oh, I tease him all the time. He loves to say, Crimson on the first down, Harvard moving the ball quite swiftly. So his Boston accent is something that we chuckle about. It hasn't changed. He's lived there all after law school and for the next 30 some odd years. But he doesn't have a thick accent. But sometimes I tease him because I think he turns it up a little bit for the Harvard fans. So
how's Harvard football been in the last 3, 4, 5 years?
Great. They won the Ivy again, I believe, this year. They typically send one or two players to the pros every year. I laugh because one of my favorite ex-Bills, Fitzy, was a Harvard player, was quarterback at Harvard for Harvard football, and they expect this year's quarterback.
Oh, Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay, why didn't register? Keep going.
Yeah, he played for Harvard, and my brother always says that he was, no question, the number one quarterback that he's seen, except this year. This year, we were able to see a guy who's going to get drafted in the NFL draft, the quarterback from Harvard. Does look like he will be drafted. He set all the records again this year for most passing touchdowns, most passing yards. So, wow. Yeah, he was a great talent. And again, I was fortunate over the last couple of years to watch him play.
Tell me a little bit about, I know where you're born, about your wife and your kids or whatever like that.
Yeah. My wife is a nurse, and she's been a nurse since we've been married. And her career has evolved. She did inpatient, she did outpatient, and she currently teaches nursing, an LPN program through Genesee Valley BOCES. She absolutely loves what she does. She loves these are all adult ed students. So these are individuals that are returning back into the workforce, looking to get a career in nursing. They typically start with her, and she absolutely loves what she does. I have another older daughter, Rachel. She went to University of Buffalo and went for accounting. She graduated in accounting in 3 years, which is a very difficult major to graduate in 3 years with, but she has very strong math skills. And she did some private accounting, she did some public accounting, ultimately decided it wasn't for her. And she has returned, she is finishing up her first year in the graduate program for social work at Brockport. She's at Webster Schrader High School right now, doing her internship. And I believe she's scheduled to go to Autism Up next year for another full year internship. My 22-year-old daughter, Mackenzie, will graduate from Geneseo. I believe you went to Geneseo.
Sure did.
She's really had a great 4 years. She is excited. She's accepted a position at Wayne Elementary School to teach 5th grade. And so she's looking forward to that in September. She's currently finishing up student teaching in Spencerport. She got a big award this week from the Geneseo Athletics Department. Since going to Geneseo, one of the guys that I taught with in Spencerport was Chris Schultz. Chris is the varsity hockey coach at Geneseo, and he took her on and said, "Hey, I'd love to have her in the penalty box." And she has done 4 years of working in the penalty box and the timekeeping and being rink manager. And they call on her to do open skate, and she'd call around and do girls lacrosse or boys soccer, and she'll do the timekeeping or the filming. So she's had a great experience. She got a big award from them, thanking him. I think she missed 1 game in 4 years of being at Geneseo. So they were just so grateful for her. She's got great work ethic and a great kid.
You must be really proud of that.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, sounds like both your daughters
they're
are
doing great. Yeah.
Did you, I don't want to say push, but did you encourage Mackenzie to get an education field that you're in?
So it's interesting. So Mackenzie has been a teacher since she was going to be a teacher no matter what happened. I always said she would come home and see me. I was principal for a long time. And so I would say, Dad, is that a good career? And I would say, it's a great career. I was fortunate. I've been fortunate to be in such great districts. But she saw how hard of work it was. She saw how many hours that I put into it. But she was teaching dance after she would go back and volunteer. Every Saturday morning, I would stick her in the car at 8 o'clock, and she would teach 3 and 4 year olds how to dance every year for 15 years. And she just loved it. And so she was just a natural. She loves kids. I'm confident that she's going to be a great teacher, and it's her calling. Mm-hmm. She knows what a difficult career it is, but she also has seen some of the rewards already in just her young experiences.
She living at home with you?
She's living in Geneseo, commuting to Spencerport.
That's cool. That's a haul.
That's a haul every day, but she'll move back home in May after she graduates. And just like me and everybody else, they move home for a little bit, and they're eager to get out. So, it's okay. Great independent kids.
Now, the older daughter, you said Rachel? Yeah. 26, did you say?
She's 26. She'll be 26 actually in October.
So you're going to get off your insurance.
Yeah, she'll save me a few bucks. And
she doesn't live at home, right?
She does. She's actually she
decided
after taking on quite a bit of student loans, going to University of Buffalo, that it just didn't make sense to rack up more loans, knowing that she was going into social work, because again, it doesn't pay a lot, but there can be some true rewards there.
So, like, she got her degree in accounting. How many more hours does she have to take to get the social work degree? Yeah, so she will need, I think it's 36 hours. Mm-hmm. No, she'll need 60 hours for her master's, because she did not have an undergraduate degree in human sciences. Okay. So, well, it's when you got a dad that's in human resources. You probably know everything off the top of your head. I do not. You don't? Well, I try to tell her I do, but she knows better. But again, I've been fortunate just in my career with having quite a bit of mental health experience, and doing that prior to getting into education. She's asked me about some of those experiences. I've tried to share, all of what I've known. And I think you're going to like having them close to you, right? Oh, yeah. I'll retire in 4 years, and we'll see what happens. But, again, whether we move down to South Carolina or whether I stay up here. Possibility for you guys? Yeah. I'm sorry, you did your graduate work at St. John Fisher? So I graduated undergraduate in St. John Fisher. I actually went to, I was working in a clinic at Strong, in a clinic for major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders. And while I was doing that, I was able to go to University of Rochester because I was working full time. I was able to do most of that at night and adjust some of my work schedule at the clinic. And then graduated from University of Rochester in 2000. What did you learn about yourself working at Strong, working with bipolar depression, split personality, and all like that? Yeah, it's not an easy gig. Yeah, well, I was finishing my degree at Fisher. I was actually working at the inpatient unit at Rochester General. And I just learned so much from individuals. When you thought you had a tough day, you just had to have that empathy of making sure that, you were prioritizing, you were keeping people safe. Safety for me was the only priority when it came to Rochester General's inpatient psychiatric unit. And at Strong, I think, the focus for me was keeping people in the community,
So we worked as a team. There was typically a clinical social worker, myself, a psychiatrist. We would do home visits. We would make sure we would align supportive housing for people, make sure they had benefits, and just making general connections just to kind of assess their mental health. Because again, when people with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, when they relapse, it actually damages the brain. It can almost look like a mini stroke on an MRI.
Mm-hmm.
And so the less relapses you can have where a person decompensates to the point of needing a hospital admission, the more and more difficult it becomes in treating that individual. So Strong was a great place to work because we were doing some really incredible research. Some of the research stemmed around not only the depression, but also the use of marijuana at the time, which was illegal then. Because one of the things that they found was individuals, young adolescents who were using quite a bit of marijuana to kind of relieve some of the symptoms that they were having, actually needed almost twice as much medicine as the average adult, because their neuroreceptors weren't taking the medicine as well. So I enjoyed being part of that research, both on the depression side, and they were also studying it on the schizophrenia side.
Now, your wife being in nursing, did it help that you're both kind of in the medical field? That you could.
Yeah, we were in. My wife convinced me that the nursing side wasn't the side for me. I knew that when I was going to school that I enjoyed helping people. I knew that people was going to be a priority for me, and so I knew that when I was at the clinic at Strong that I couldn't do that long term. That was not something that was sustainable to me, and so when I decided at the U of R to take school counseling, I took my first class, and part of that first class required me to visit with 4 different school counselors. And boy, I had such a great experience. I knew that I had gotten closer to what I wanted to do, and thoroughly enjoyed being a high school counselor at Spencerport High School.
So when you were doing the visiting 4 different counselors, which area or districts did you go to?
Yeah, it's funny. I did. So I went to McQuaid. I went to Wilson Magnet in the city. I went to Avon, and I believe I went to Webster.
Did you notice a big difference in the student body or the treatment or the counseling?
Yeah.
within
The
each
counseling was definitely different. I ultimately ended up doing my internship over a year and a half at Irondequoit. And Irondequoit was a great place to learn. I was with a super talented school counselor named Willie Buckles. And Willie believed that counselors should teach and should know how to teach. So I definitely learned a ton about teaching pedagogy from Willie, and also their ASI, who again required me to be part of those classes. I really enjoyed it because counselors not only taught, but at Irondequoit for a while they graded. They graded students on their pathway, whether they had a post-secondary plan or not, which again I thought was that was progressive thinking back then, that school counselors would be grading students. But they had a curriculum that they developed and implemented, and it was something that I brought to Spencerport because I felt it was so important that school counselors provide a consistent experience and curriculum for all students, and it shouldn't depend on the alphabet that you serve.
Mm-hmm. So your first and only job in counseling was at Spencerport?
Yep, I was a high school counselor for 4 years at the high school. And interestingly enough, the Hilton connection, of course, comes out as Marcia Bartolo, Brian Bartolo's wife, hired me in 99, 2000. Yep.
All right, so you're there 4 years.
Yeah, I was there 4 years.
What'd you do after that? So then during that time, you're getting your administrative?
I started to get my administrative. I had met with the superintendent, asked to meet with me, and said that he thought I had quite a bit of leadership skills and would I consider going back for my administrative degree. I looked into it and said, you know what, let me just take a class and see if something I would like, and if not, I'll probably be a better employee from looking at it from an administrative perspective. And I took that first class, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a great professor, a guy named Walter Polka. Walter was superintendent at Lewiston Porter. He was a character, but he taught me so many lessons about being a good administrator. He was a strong personality and a great leader. but also had this charismatic component to him about making sure you treat people with dignity and respect, because that's what people will remember, the way you make them feel, not the decision that you give them. And so I've taken that with me throughout my entire career. After finishing the administrative program, I went actually, I did summer school. Tim Dodderton was was the summer school principal with Sean McCabe, who's currently serving as an interim AP right now at Hilton High School. Sean was long-term high school principal in Spencerport. And after that, I was assistant principal at Cosgrove Middle School for 4 years, and then ended up having just an amazing career as principal for 11 years after that.
At Cosgrove.
At Cosgrove, yep, in Spencerport. And then I took a superintendency in 2018 and at Elba Central School District, which is west of here, about 50 minutes west of here, but about an hour from my home. And again, I super lucky, amazing district, great supported Board of Education, talented teachers, very, very lucky to secure that. What became difficult, honestly, was the commute was very taxing. At the time, we were going through COVID. I ended up, one of the board members allowed me to use a house in Elba, so I was sleeping in Elba a couple days a week. Again, navigating just the most difficult time in education during COVID, trying to figure out how we would stay open. Even as a tiny little school district, it came with so many challenges. And so, again, the information was unclear, and changing all the time. And so I would draft something and send it out to the staff with the latest updates. And I can remember driving away at 5:30 at night on multiple Fridays. During that time, the state would send out a new change, and I would turn around and call my wife and say, I'm not going to make it home. Oh. And so leave at 9:30, recommunicate everything. I was very transparent with the community, and I would actually attach the memos from state ed and send them out.
So they could read it.
So they could read it.
You're not making it up.
I was not making it up. It felt like people were making it up. I was, again, just trying to make sure that people were safe. Again, it was an unclear time. It was challenging. I didn't want to risk any aid, student aid, financial aid for the state obviously sent us. There was a ton of kind of threats and intimidation going on at the time in education. And again, we were just trying to keep students going, making sure that they were doing okay, that they were learning, that we were providing the best experience possible. The teachers were shifting to a completely different process of teaching, one that I would say doesn't compare to in-person. Right?
No.
We all know that in-person learning is the best learning.
Now, you mentioned, okay, first of all, how big was Elba?
Elba was 450 kids, K-12.
K-12. And Hilton this year is?
800.
Oh, okay, much bigger. Now, you mentioned your superintendent, I believe, was in Spencerport, came to you and said, hey, I think you got leadership skills.
Yep. Actually, another Hilton connection. His wife was Gail Langton, who served here as, I believe, the director of ELA.
She was the Karen Spielman here for a while.
Correct. Yeah.
And so is her husband that came to you?
Yes. So Phil and Gail I've known them for almost 30 years now.
No kidding.
Yes.
Tell me about, maybe did Mr. Langton say what those leadership skills were, or maybe when you reflected on yourself that early on, what leadership skills did you think you possessed that you could then take forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when the superintendent makes an appointment with you and the HR assistant superintendent in your second year, I honestly thought I had done something wrong.
Right.
I can remember thinking, I'm going to pack my stuff. I don't know what happened.
Right.
I can remember them, because the appointment ended up on my calendar. I didn't ask for the appointment. And so my secretary in the counseling office said, hey, Mr. Crum called, and he and Mr. Langton would like to meet with you today at the end of school at 2:30. And so
was it a Friday?
It was not a Friday,
okay,
which led me to think, okay, well, this might be okay, but you don't know. And again, you're in the end of your second year. And they said that I could communicate, that I was connecting with people, that I was, and I was connecting with all, not only students, but staff, and people felt like I had an ability to be a good leader. And I was so early into education. I had some life experience through working at Strong and at Rochester General. I had a work ethic that I thought was important. I had a belief as a school counselor that I didn't grade homework, so I needed to attend more events and be a bit more visible. That was something that I felt was important. I remember going to seeing dance and going to games and seeing kids perform their concerts because I felt like it was just, again, a different opportunity. And again, shortly after I started in that October of my first year, we were called about Rachel, who we adopted, and we got called on a Tuesday and we picked her up on a Thursday, and I didn't even know how to take a personal day. And so we were very, very fortunate, my wife and I, but she had started at Strong in the ICU. And so she didn't have that much sick time and there was no leave for adoption leave back then.
Okay.
There was no, I couldn't say, I'll take 10 days or adoption leave just didn't exist back then. So that was a big challenge for us. Luckily, my mom was still alive at the time and Marissa's parents were alive at the time and they helped us out. And, but Marissa would work nights. I would take Rachel by myself at night and do 3 feedings and then get to Spencerport High School by 7:00. And then Marissa would be home and we made it work, right? Like parents do.
So communication, a hard work ethic, a belief. And then you also put in there that Rachel's adopted.
She is. Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about coming into the adoption agency. And that's a pretty quick turnaround. Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because I know there's a lot of people that listen, or not that I have millions of listeners, but they want to be parents.
Yeah.
So how'd you go?
Yeah,
about
we were
that?
we were on a waiting list for probably 2 years. What happens is you create a profile for yourself once you're approved. The prospective parents get to review before they decide whether you're a fit. And interestingly enough, with Rachel, I swear she just grew in our heart. We didn't know it, but what happened was when Rachel was born and they called us to say they had selected us to be parents, Rachel was named my wife's name, which is Marissa. Which is, what are the chances that, and so they had said to the Rachel's birth mother, hey.
Wait, the birth mother named her Marissa?
Yes.
Wow. She was yours.
Yeah. And so, they said, why did you name her Marissa? And she said, well, because that's my favorite aunt. And so then when we they said, well, you picked Ned and Marissa to be parents, you might want to change it. And she changed it to Rachel and we kept it.
Okay.
Yep. So, Rachel's been the best thing ever. So, we again, no different. But we've had ups and downs with adoption. We had
Explain that.
Yeah, we had I would say we had the best case scenario with Rachel, and the worst case scenario, we had a baby boy with us for 12 weeks. We fed him his first bottle. We had an adoption agreement with a young lady, and on the 12th week, she went to court and was going to sign off her parental rights, and she changed her mind on that day. And so I'll never forget, unfortunately, losing him back to her. But again, that is the kind of the nature of the laws that parents are allowed to make that decision. But once they've waived their rights and signed off in court, there's no coming back. But up until you get to that point, it's certainly unsure, which is why people adopt typically out of country. Because it's a little more clear cut. So
how did your wife and you reconcile and look at that and say,
Well, it's interesting because we were going through the in vitro process at the time, and we had been unable to kind of maintain a pregnancy and keep that going. And so shortly after he returned to his other family's home, we found out about Mackenzie, and then Mackenzie was. So we were expecting 3 at one point. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to do 3. We barely had a crib and a car seat for Rachel, and we were more prepared for Mackenzie. But like I said, it worked out the way it's supposed to work out. And so Rachel, Mackenzie, again, great kids, doing great, delightful young ladies.
Are you a girl daddy?
I am. Those 2 jokers, they get me. So it's nice to see them develop, and it's nice to see them. I used to laugh because I used to say, how can 1,100 kids in a middle school listen to the principal? And I come home and you 2 kids don't listen to me. But they're like I said, I've been fortunate in my life with my wife and my kids.
Do you think they take after you or your wife?
Well, it's pretty funny. A little bit of both, actually. I would say people that say Rachel looks like me, I think she does.
And even though she's adopted.
Yeah, and Mackenzie looks more like Marissa.
Yeah.
And so, but she's got quite a sense of humor. So, you got to look out for Mackenzie too.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting getting to know you about. So we got so many questions. I'm glad I got you. Tell me a little bit about your human resource team over here at Central Office.
Oh gosh. So first of all, when being principal as long as I have, I've had a variety of office staff that I've worked with, and I just said this the other day. There's been 2 points in my career where I've had an office staff that absolutely loved each other, loved working with each other, loved supporting each other. And so I am so fortunate here in Hilton to work with Debbie Palmieri, who's kind of my direct assistant. Mindy Leckinger supports Brittany. Brittany is the director of human resources.
Can you tell me how she pronounces her last name?
Nazradine.
Oh.
Nazradine. And Brittany's the director of human resources. And then Wendy Radford does benefits.
Okay.
This team of individuals is one of the most talented teams, but not only are they good at what they do, they love employees of Hilton. They love being here, and they love supporting each other. If Debbie's out, Mindy will pick up. If Mindy's out, Debbie will pick up. Wendy's on a trip, and we all figure it out together. Brittany is so talented as a director of human resources with a legal background, a trained attorney. She is someone I've absolutely loved connecting with, building our team, our relationship of kind of managing so much in a busy district that has faced so much adversity over the past 5 years. So again, super fortunate to see and work with a talented group.
What inspired you to pursue a career in HR? I know you talked a little bit about, was it Phil Langton?
Yeah.
And how's your journey evolved over the years?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, I started out and working at Rochester General's inpatient psychiatric unit, which made me well trained to be principal and superintendent.
I would say to handle crises too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was dealing with individuals at the lowest point in their lives. Some were literally coming off of a bridge. Some were just coming in and being brought in from RPD and a SWAT team that took them out of a house because they were a danger to themselves or others. So I learned so much from those individuals and how to make a connection, how to just make sure that they were safe, how to reassure them that we're going to get through this. There are strategies, there is medicine, there's things that we can do to help them. And I've tried to carry that throughout all of my experience, middle school principal, and now in this role. I would say I do more counseling in this role than I've done in all my years of school counseling. Yeah. And again, you're seeing people at the best and worst of times.
Correct.
You're seeing new hires come to the table and be so excited,
right,
and you're giving them a great job in an amazing district with other talented administrators and teachers. It's life-changing for young 21, 22-year-olds. In addition, you also can be giving someone their worst news and letting them go and discontinuing their employment. And so I think the thing that's most important to me is that we treat people with dignity, no matter what type of message you're giving them. I've had the unfortunate spot of laying people off as both principal, assistant principal, superintendent, assistant superintendent, and I think it's treating people with dignity. I think it's okay to reinforce that message, and I think there's some strategies to make sure that you reinforce how you get that message across, because they're not listening to you. It's very emotional.
Right. Exactly.
It's important to say the message, say it directly, and repeat it, and because they're not hearing half of what you're saying. So when you say we're going to part from employment, we're going to separate. We're going to end your employment today. You need to say it multiple times. And unfortunately, you need to say it multiple ways. But you can also do it with dignity. You can treat that individual with respect while you're giving them that information. That's something that I think is something that I've brought to the table here in Hilton. I've tried to demonstrate to staff that people are important to me, that I truly put people first. And I hope people feel that way.
Can you share maybe a pivotal moment, obviously, don't say who, but in your career that shaped your approach to people management?
I will. I'll share about the most difficult day of my career. It was a Friday afternoon. I was actually it was Friday afternoon. School dismissed at 3:25, and I typically wouldn't leave until 5. My wife was working, I think, nights that day, and I had to get Mackenzie to dance for some form of a dance competition. I had to get her over to a friend's, and I took a phone call that one of the teachers that I had seen at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that he took his own life. This absolutely changed me as an administrator. It changed me as a person. I got Mackenzie to her dance spot and hustled back out to Cosgrove, where I was able to meet with the superintendents, my 2 assistant principals, Ty Zikwich, who's the current superintendent, and we tried to make some plans, and we needed to make some communication to people, so that we could make sure that they didn't find out through the news media, that they didn't find out through another outlet or social media. So some of those most difficult phone calls changed me, and recognizing that I needed to step up as hard as it was and as much as I was hurting, because he was an amazing teacher. This was a super talented teacher. And I realized at that moment that was going to forever change me. And I needed to not only think about my immediate team and his department, but think about the impact of the school, think about the impact on the kids. And then there were others, that we thought about. This individual worked a lot in athletics. And so I think about, that component too. And so we invited people that were working in facilities over to a meeting on a Saturday where we kind of sat, hugged and cried and, tried to stay strong. And again, just so fortunate to work in great districts like Spencerport, Hilton, and Elba. But that day forever changed me. It made me realize that sometimes it's bigger than me. And I can remember being so frustrated when kids would sign out for vacation to Disney World. Like, why are they leaving? Why now? My teachers are upset. Parents want the work. And I thought to myself, someone thought their world was so horrible that they took their own life. And making memories with your kids and with is so much more important than sometimes what we do. And it can be frustrating for teachers. I don't take that away from teachers, but sometimes, even when my mom passed away, that's a moment in my life where I said, you know what? I wish I would have taken that Thursday, Friday off, and gone away with my kids, but I didn't because I was a principal. But we have to sometimes think about, we are humans. And that day with that gentleman taking his own life was something that for me, changed about how I was going to make sure I communicated, make sure I took that extra time. As a former mental health counselor and school counselor, I thought about what did I miss that whole time. To this day, his 13-year anniversary was Monday. And so it's not something that I miss, meaning I think about that day every year. When I said to him on that Monday, I knew what day it was when I woke up, because again, it was so transformational for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Does it kill you, make it stronger? But I don't know.
No,
I'll just leave it at that.
I think it does because
for you,
because he had young boys. His boys have become great young men, is my understanding. And so again, it was powerful for me. It was humbling for me. But it also, when I watched our staff come together, it was also life-changing that maybe I had made a difference in that school. I had retirees who hadn't taught there in a couple of years come back, and they donated their time just to relieve teachers that were teary in their classroom, who missed seeing them. And so I think that for me was those types of phone calls to get them from retirees. Said, I haven't been there in 5 years. Can I come back and just relieve staff and walk halls? That made all the difference. That took so much pressure off of me because I wasn't ready to be, they weren't ready to be back in classrooms. I wasn't ready to kind of lead a school. I started to take phone calls from media. Again, it was a challenging time, but something that, again, made me a better administrator, gave me compassion and some empathy for people. And how to manage and communicate difficult things. Just tough times.
Well, you spoke to me about going on vacation and making memories with families. It might be more important than staying in school that whole time before vacation. In your view, what are the biggest shifts in workplace culture over the past few years? I mean, obviously with COVID. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think I think education's taken a hit. I can think some former governors, Governor Cuomo, I think he decimated and truly hurt education. when the APPR system was developed by legislators and not educators. I really struggled with that as a principal. I think I could see good teaching and could evaluate good teaching. I don't even mind using a rubric.
Right.
But when you started to use the scoring mechanism, I struggled with that. I'm glad to see the new APPR changes that are coming through, which allow for way more flexibility, which allow for way more opportunities for teachers to work in teams on something they are interested in, as opposed to something that the state is essentially interested in. I think those are big changes. I think the teacher shortage has created a lack of substitutes, which allows also for a little bit of a lack of training on how to manage students. So I think that's something that's important. And I think it's also when we had when we had bigger pools of candidates, if I worked with a first year teacher who I felt like I could not make the progress that I wanted to see in that individual, I let them go.
Right.
I told them that I was ending their probationary period, that, I welcomed them to apply to other districts. I tried to tell them early enough so that they could find another position. And I think we put more effort now into individuals who we wouldn't have years ago. But I also think that's also when you see a teacher make that connection and start to develop those skills, although it took a little bit longer than you might have expected, and then they're successful. I'm proud of that.
Right.
I've seen some of that here. I definitely saw it in both of my other districts, and that really can make a difference. But I don't think I had I had a shorter fuse to make that decision before, because there were so many candidates. I can remember I had a part-time 6th grade job. I had 350 applicants, right? Part-time.
For a part-time job.
0.5. And again, boxes and boxes of applicants. We just don't have that same luxury anymore. So I think it's also important that, the individuals that are getting into education now, like my daughter, it's a calling. It's a calling for Rachel, who's in the social work program. It's a calling for Mackenzie, who's going to teach elementary students next year.
Why do you think that the amount of applications and the people going into education has decreased over the years?
I think there's a lot of factors. I think the pension system is one, although not many of the students or not many of the people that we pick up or that I'm signing over at the table ask me about the pension or ask me about post, do you have health insurance in retirement? No one's ever asked me that when they sign their first job.
Right.
I do think it's a factor, because I think there's a level of respect there that hopefully the Tier 6 will get corrected. I think you also need to pay people more. That's a reality. You're needing to pay people more at a time when, as we felt this year in our current budget, funds were at an all-time low with prices skyrocketing. So, for example, like the cost of our electric bill is going up roughly $400,000 next year. The state, for our entire district, is only going to send us $350,000. That means you're upside down just already automatically on one bill.
Right.
And that didn't include our health insurance bill that went up $2 million. And it didn't include, so all those other factors, which put a stress and strain, certainly on our faculty, which was hearing from Casey and myself that, the budgets were tight. They're tighter than ever. But, we tried to make a plan and use every single component of the we could of attrition with people retiring to try to preserve we have some super talented teachers. We also have new teachers that we've put a ton of energy and effort and training into. We don't want to lose them. We've hired some really great people. So, we were luckily able. Unfortunately, we did have to make some difficult decisions of shifting people back into the classroom, taking them out of coaching roles, taking out of them specific reading programs and putting them back in the classroom. But at the same time, I'm thrilled to say we don't have layoffs. We're seeing districts laying off almost 80 people in Syracuse, 80, 40, 20. I was reading today, one district is looking down towards the Long Island area, eliminating all athletics, $655,000 eliminated.
Public school?
Public school, because they are going out with they're asking their community to approve a 9.73 increase. And they're going to need 60% of their community to approve almost a 10% increase, or all of athletics is on the chopping blocks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you're seeing some of those things. Because again, the cost of higher education is also something that is significant. As I said, Mackenzie goes to Geneseo. It costs us about $23,000 a year. So if you look at on average, a 4-year degree, $100,000 for a state school, again, the pay is going to be in the mid 40s to start. And that's tough for, an individual that might have $100,000 in student loans. So there's a lot of complicating factors there. So our effort has been on culture and been on the focus of listening to our new employees. I've reported out to the unions and to the Board of Education. We do a new staff survey every January, from our teachers to cleaners to administrators to teaching assistants. We want to hear how things are going. We want to know, are they comfortable approaching their supervisor? Do they have the supplies to do their job? How was their onboarding experience? How is their training? What else do they need? And we go over that, and that is shared with the administrative team, and they are asked to identify areas that might need changes. And we've made changes. What we do now with our onboarding and orientation is way different than when we started. We did an onboarding and orientation committee after my first or after my second year in that summer. There was representation of every department, from transportation to buildings and grounds to every building. And we made great adjustments to make sure that our staff felt welcomed, that they felt connected when they arrived here. And again, we can always get better. But overall, I'm thrilled with the changes that we've made. Programmatically, when I first started and I saw teachers having to put a day in school front to request a day off, and then they had to go into the subs to request another day off. So we brought in absence management,
Right.
To try to make it a little bit better. There's a great app that people can use on their phones that can do both their sick days, their personal days, and their timesheet. So we're trying to give some flexibility, improve the programming that people are experiencing. And again, we've made those great changes, but again, not without support and a few hiccups there now and then. Overall, pleased with some of the changes that we've made, because again, we need to keep our employees happy.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they look somewhere else.
You want to keep them. Tell me a little bit. I know sometimes in the beginning of the year, you make like coffee visits, or you visit. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell us.
Yeah, that's something that is important. One of the things that we recognized right as I was starting in 2021, going into 2022, was that we needed to focus on culture. And so I was able to work with Casey and Kristen and Adam on Harvard, offered a training from a guy named Lauren Rubis. And Lauren is a super talented guy who was CEO, CFO. He was actually CFO of the Los Angeles Kings hockey team. He's been CEO of natural gas and oil companies in Canada. And his point has been, he's gone in as a kind of a turnaround CEO on numerous occasions. And most of the time, it wasn't the product that they were selling. It wasn't the staff that needed a ton of retraining. It was a culture issue. Mm-hmm. And so listening to staff is something that's important to me. I try to make people feel like they can approach me at any time, whether I'm doing a lap around Village or stopping in the high school or standing by the tables outside of the cafeteria at Merton Williams during lunchtime. I want people to feel like they can approach me or call me. I've given out my cell phone hundreds of times because I want people to feel like they can call me. Mm-hmm. When they're calling, they're typically in need of something. Our employees, they're not calling to bother me. They're calling because they have a problem, whether it's the birth of a child, a death of a spouse, a death of a parent, something. So again, trying to do that. But again, that speaks to a shift in culture, right? I think years ago, no one bothered the admins. No one felt like they should bother. Or, can I even ask Ned a question? Right. I certainly never ran my school that way. Gave out my cell phone countless times to parents when I was principal, because I felt like if you're going to call me and it's going to alleviate your child and we can have a conversation at 9:00 at night so that your child can sleep, you can sleep, it always works out better. Right. So a little bit of effort early on. And again, that's what those coffee talks have done. I think, after doing them several years, we've captured a lot of things. And we've made some changes with field trips. I think we've made some changes overall culture wise. And if nothing else, it's given people the opportunity. I think people are now, 5 years later, I think people are more comfortable.
100%.
So I think, when we try to send out surveys and we're not getting a lot of surveys back, I think it's like, okay, maybe we do the surveys every other year. Do we need to do them every year? Well, teachers are asked to do a lot. Right. Do they need to do another survey? maybe they don't. Because honestly, if they feel comfortable enough, they should just call us, have a conversation. Casey, Chris, and Adam and I, we will certainly have a conversation with anybody. I think that is hopefully being felt across the buildings. That's really what we want. And again, but then we need to do less surveys, and we can still offer the coffee talks or some forum, but does it need to be right after school, before school? Like let people create an opportunity, and if people want to do it, because I think we've broken down some of those barriers.
Sure. Get into a little bit about recruiting and talent, because there's a lot of talent, even though it's kind of decreased a little bit over the years. What strategies have you found most effective for attracting and retaining top talent?
Right. So again, years ago, you can remember kicking open the newspaper on a Sunday, seeing 25 districts advertising for. We know that doesn't work. That was something that used to work. No one reads the newspaper anymore.
Are they even around anymore?
Yeah, it's not. We didn't.
Digital.
We haven't found it fruitful even in the digital component. We have found that some of the social media, and I would say Instagram and Facebook probably the most, is getting the most viewership. So we've done it that way. I think one of the things that, and again, I have to give a shout out to Brittany again. One of the things that has stopped, if you remember years ago, you probably remember Teacher Recruitment Day.
100%.
Teacher Recruitment Day.
No more 100%. I'm not going to say that anymore. Yeah, keep going.
Right. Teacher Recruitment Day used to be a huge event. You'd have 100 different districts from across the country piling into a gym or a college gym or a college ice rink. Right. And people would run in and try to sign up and get interviews at different districts.
It was like speed dating.
Keep going. Yeah. So over the past couple of years, I had said to the Monroe County assistant superintendents for HR, the personnel directors, and said, well, why aren't we doing this anymore? It was after COVID, and they were doing some online interviewing, which I had interviewed enough college seniors who were laying in bed. I wasn't interested in that anymore on Zoom. And so we pitched it, I kind of pitched the idea to our countywide group that why don't we offer our own? And so last year, we took that on, and we met with the colleges. The colleges had no interest in running Rochester Teacher Recruitment Day again. They were charging different districts, they were charging a certain amount for a table. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, we can do that for free. We don't need to do, maybe we use the superintendent's conference day, which is what we did. And so I was pleased and fortunate to lead that for the county. I took that on as just a kind of a responsibility. I felt like it was the right thing to do because Brittany and I, for example, we drove to Cortland for a full day teacher recruitment day, and we saw 6 candidates 2 years ago for the full day, and we left midday. And in the 6 that we met, not one of them would accept an interview back in Rochester. So then we went to Buffalo, and we spent a full day in Buffalo.
How many there?
And we got one. I'm pleased to say she's a high school algebra teacher right now, and she's doing a great job. But that's a lot of time, money, energy, and effort for
little return.
So this year, I was fortunate. We created subcommittees. We had a higher education committee. We had a facilities committee. We did it through sponsorships, and so we had a budget committee. We used a program and a platform called CareerEco.com. Pretty inexpensive program. Every district was given 30 districts we hosted this year at Gates Shy Life Fieldhouse, and it was the 2 Fridays before break, April break, and each district got 2 interviewing slots, and they had on Career Eco allowed to have 2 interviewing schedules, so candidates were able to go in, click, and sign up. We had over 400 teacher candidates registered. Everybody conducted interviews from 9 o'clock right up until 3 o'clock. And we had just a great experience. Now, there are changes that we are going to make.
Right.
We're going to use April 9th conference day, and we're going to back it up a little bit from that March time zone. And the reason was because as districts were struggling with their budgets, we weren't sure what our needs were yet. We weren't sure about the positions that we were wanting to interview for. So sometimes you were interviewing a candidate like, wow, super talented. I don't have a job for you. So we're gonna switch that up a little bit. April 9th will be our teacher recruitment day. Again, it's a superintendent's conference day. We're going to use the Gates Shy Life Fieldhouse. They've been an amazing host and partner. Again, I'm happy to kind of lead that crusade for the countywide. We're expanding it to 40 districts. We're going to add 10 more districts to our pool. But we have multiple districts and schools wait on the waiting list, eager to get with us. So I'm pleased to kind of lead that. I don't say it. I don't say it because I want accolades. I say it because it's an important thing for Hilton to lead.
Yeah.
And be leaders in this area. Get the best talent. Be collaborative with other districts. Because when you do that and you create great relationships in the county, and I love the countywide HR team. We now do professional development once a month on a Friday when we do our county meeting, and there are super talented people in that room. And so we've shared some of what we've done. I certainly have shared our new staff survey and the results with the county. They love the thought of, wow, how can we use that in our district? Might look a little different for us, but hey, I'm taking that idea. So I think it's important to be kind of leaders to recruit and retain the best talent. So
Interesting.
yeah, hoping to continue to do some of that work.
I like that idea that you're spearheading.
Yeah.
How do you coach leaders to handle difficult conversations with employees? Like you were talking about, this person isn't listening. You might have to repeat it, but how do you coach those people that have to do that?
Yeah, I think part of this is coming with some of my concerns around online graduate programs. When I went to did my administrative program, we sat in circles and did scenarios, and we did face-to-face hard conversations, and it was interesting because some districts handled things differently than we did when I was in Spencerport. And so as I've been able to be in different districts, as I've been able to work with different administrators over the year, I've picked up on things that I would do and I wouldn't do. Right. I would say my mother was an example of how to be a parent, and I struggled with my father's parenting schedule and the lack thereof parenting. And so I take that as, I think we experience that same thing, and we have to pay attention, just like teachers do, to models and non-models. And so I think I've tried to bring that. We've tried to do some coaching. I also think it depends on the culture of the district. I think some districts are more friendly when it comes to, I'll tell you, for example, when I first started to get to know people and started my entry plan in Hilton, I was visiting a lot of classrooms. That was very intimidating to me. Why would Ned Dale want to visit
100%.
classrooms?
Yes, it was.
And I would say is that because I love seeing great teaching, because I love seeing kids learn, because I love watching the connection that a teacher can make with a kid who might be a super tough kid.
Right.
But yet I was so fascinated because I was certainly asked to slow down my visits, slow down my notes to teachers, which again, I think 5 years later, I think people feel far more comfortable with me now than they did 5 years ago. But the fact that there was more of an us versus them 5 years ago was concerning to me. It seemed overly combative. And again, I think our relationship from the administrative team with the unions has improved immensely. I think our problem solving at the building level has been much improved. But when you work with people and as they gain your trust, if you don't have a good emotional bank account with someone, the person that you're going to give that bad news to is not going to hear you. And so it's so important to say it. It's important to repeat it. It's important to summarize it. And then it's important to send them an email or a counseling memo, because it's not disciplinary. When I say the words counseling memo, I mean it. It's about, hey, we're all on the same page. Here's my expectation for the future. Just wanted to make sure you knew. That shouldn't be a threat to anybody because it's not discipline. I'm not filing charges against people. Right. I think that's something that's an ongoing struggle for people, but something that as my time in Hilton goes, I hope that improves, because again, then people will relax when they come to meet with an administrator, as opposed to it's taboo to meet with the administrator.
I like that terminology. You need an emotional bank account. I think that's pretty cool. So the counseling memo, is that a letter in your files?
Yeah. And that's all it is. It's a letter to say,
does it get expunged after 3 weeks, 3 years?
No, not necessarily.
Stays there? Okay.
It stays. But again, it just says, hey, we had this conversation. This is what I expect of you. And I only think, my experience has been is that when people know the expectation that you have for them, they generally want to meet it. I haven't met many teachers that go, you know what, I got hired to make sure I don't follow what Ned Dale wants. I don't want to do what Dr. Green's telling me to do. That's not what I've seen for people. And people in education want to do the right thing. And so when they don't do the right thing, I think it's important just to, hey, we met. This is what we talked about.
Right.
In the future, this is what I want you to do. In some places, I would say it's a little trickier. Again, that comes with trust. I think there is far more trust now than when I arrived 5 years ago. And I do not take credit for it.
Well,
I think the team has made changes. I think Casey's made changes. I think Kristen and Adam have done a great job. I think our team functions very well together. So I think there's and the principals have kind of followed and kind of heard us of what we expect.
I mean, playing off of that, it's improved over the last 5 years. Can you share a time when you successfully resolved a challenging workplace conflict?
Yeah, I think there's. I don't want to get into too much specifics, but
Right, you don't have to.
I think when it comes to new teams, whether it's a new administrative team or a new teaching team, they get a new member of their team. They're trying to, kind of feel them out. Like, oh, geez, I don't know why they keep doing this. I don't really like when they do this, and that can go for the administrative team too. And I think it's important that I've seen different administrators send out. What do you want me to start doing? Stop doing, or you continue doing. And that's how I've had those three types of surveys that I've done while I was principal, because I think that's an important piece. And I think if people can then take that information, start, stop, and continue, they'll make the change. And then if you do it consistently enough, they'll demonstrate trust to know that you mean it. When we send out surveys, I'm reading the surveys because I didn't ask you to do it just for fun. But when I start to see lower survey results and people completing the survey, that tells me, okay, there's a greater level of trust. Because I think otherwise people are louder on surveys there. They want us to know that, that piece. And so, but then I think once you see that, it's incumbent upon the administrative team then to say, hey, you know what? Careful about asking people to continue to do surveys because they've told you, right? You don't want to over survey people to death.
I always think it's good that you do give us the opportunity to voice, so if you choose not to, well, it's on you too.
Yeah, no. And I think it doesn't have to be the same method.
Okay.
And so it doesn't have to always be a survey that takes you 15 minutes and takes up your planning time. It can be hey, we're going to have a meeting, come to the meeting and stop and see me. Or, hey, when you're swinging by the building next time, come and see us. Yeah. So it's how you do those forums. But it's something that I'm thinking about because I want to make sure that people feel comfortable and aren't overtasked.
Moving on to diversity, equity, and inclusion, what practical steps can organizations take to make DEI more than just a checkbox?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I've had this theory all along. First of all, I think DEI was packaged very poorly. I think if you said to every parent and every teacher, we're going to be nice to every kid, no matter what your background is, no matter what your skin color is, no matter who you are, we're going to be nice to everybody. That's DEI.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a checkbox.
Right.
That's saying it's the shift away from what I used to call our long-winded mission and vision to now our 4 cadet intentional values. That for me has made the greater shift. If you ask people now, what are our 4 cadet intentional values?
Well, they're on the wall.
They're on the wall. They're here everywhere.
Awesome.
But they're also you can see it, right? People can demonstrate their integrity. It's important for us to demonstrate our integrity. It's important to demonstrate our integrity with the community after all that we've been through since 2021. It's important to be people first. But being welcoming and affirming might be considered DEI, but isn't it just welcoming our community into our schools and making sure our students, no matter who they are, feel comfortable, no matter if they're rich, poor, whatever. So I think for me, it's just packaged poorly. I think it became overly political, not something that, and I think it's important that every single community member feel welcome in our schools, because if you think about it, the reason why you and I have jobs is because we have students in our schools. And when we see less students, we see less of us, right?
Right. How do you measure the real impact of DEI initiatives? Is it a feeling or tell me?
Very difficult to quantify, right? Yeah. We can say we've done a DEI training. I think we can say how we can make better connections with our students, how we can pay attention to symptoms of people feeling excluded and bullied. I think bullied is a word that's often overused because a kid is not kind to another kid It doesn't mean they're bullied. It doesn't mean it was repetitive. It doesn't mean there was, more than one person picking on them. So I go back to that concept of, if we said we were going to be nice to everyone, and that was the equivalent of PEI, do you think people would feel differently? I think they would. If I said to you, do you think Hilton's a nicer place to work in 2025 than it was in 2021? What would you say?
Yes.
But that's a feeling. Can you put a number on that? I can't put a number on it. I don't know if I can put a number on it. So I think it's important, but that's that component of administrators being open, administrators being visible, administrators, walking the talk, and putting themselves out there. I called one employee this week and I said, "Hey, I know you're tied up, but you can call me tonight. Here's my cell." "Your cell?" I said, "Of course." She said, "What time do you go home?" I said, "Don't worry about that. Just call my cell. Right now you're busy. You got a little bit of a crisis going on. Just call my cell." And they did. They were just so pressed. They needed 10 minutes. They needed a technical question asked. They just needed 10 minutes. That's just an important thing to do. Can I put a number on that? I can't put a number on that. I hope the employee felt supported.
Oh, I would think they did. I mean, I could say for myself, I met with you once over a situation, and you gave me your cell phone on the spot. I never used it, but I still got it.
Yeah, call me.
Yeah. And I like the open, the visibility, the walk the talk, and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm grading it, I could definitely say that.
Yeah.
You guys are doing all that.
But it's not a number, right?
Right.
It's not a number. It's going to be a feeling.
I do. Looking at the future of HR, what skills do you think HR professionals will need in the next 5 to 10 years? This will be your swan song for after you're gone.
So first of all, you don't want to lose the people first.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's things that I don't want to lose. I don't think you ever replace teachers with AI. First of all, because a good teacher can make a connection with a kid and get them over the hump of whatever they are struggling with. And so I think when it comes to that recruiting, I always said when I was principal and looking I never looked at anybody's GPA. I had administrative colleagues that I want to look at that kid's GPA, and I don't think I ever looked at one, because if I could find an individual that wanted to work hard, loved kids, had some pedagogical skills, I could make them a better teacher, but I couldn't make them a better person.
Yep. Yeah.
I couldn't. And so that's something that I think, and again, that's where I feel like, with 4 years to go, my goal is to make sure our office continues to be high functioning, no matter who's here. I think that the fact that it should have good customer service so that applicants and candidates and future employees want to work here. I think it's setting up pathways for people to work here. I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that we've had 2 individuals who are in programs. Tia Clark's in the residency program. I don't know if you've met Tia.
No, yeah.
She was a high school teaching assistant, and she was back to school, and she was going through the University of Rochester. There's what's called a residency program where she has a 1-year experience, and she also goes to school at night while she's completing her master's degree. It's a 15-month program. And she's paid a stipend. The district agrees to...
what school is she working at?
Right now, she's at Merton Williams.
Okay.
She was here at Quest.
Do you have one at Village too?
And I'm going to tell you about a whole different program. Okay. So then we have... So in the residency program, I'm very proud. Tia has done an amazing job in this residency program. It's a collaboration between University of Rochester, BOCES, and ourselves as the hiring district. And so she has subbed for us. She goes to school 4 days a week in the same spot. She's had an experience at Quest, and then she's had an experience at Merton Williams. And then we just hired her next year to be a high school special education teacher.
Excellent.
Great kid, Hilton graduate, but very proud of that. In addition, we brought on a different program this year called an apprentice, a teaching apprentice. So you're probably familiar with apprentices in plumbing and electric, and the Department of Labor recognized that, hey, teachers could be good apprentices. And so they were looking at the rate of which teachers are leaving the industry, and it's in the 60%, leaving within 5 years. And so in a teacher apprentice program, with a 1-year experience, basically the equivalent of student teaching for a year, a little bit more in depth. They get a 1-year experience. The district actually hires them. So we've hired her through Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES. Emma is doing an amazing job at Village with that team and having a great experience. She's learned so much. Again, I'm very proud to bring this. But the nice part about it is because she's a BOCES employee, the district gets aid back on that money. And then I've been able to work with a gentleman named Steve Dana out of the SUNY Hub, which is a teacher workforce development program. And they have also committed for every apprentice that we take, they're giving the district $6,000 in cash to our general fund. So the cost is, it doesn't cost us anything to bring on Emma Spellman, train her in our walls with every experience that a teacher would get. She's being led by a great team. Nia Pike and Beth Foreman are doing just a great job with her. She's loving it, being a Hilton resident and Hilton graduate. She went into pharmacy school, graduated in 3 years, but knew she didn't want to be a pharmacist. So she worked with the education department.
Kind of like being an accountant, didn't
right?
Went into social work.
Yeah. And so I worked very collaboratively, and now I'm on the advisory council with this teacher apprentice program throughout New York State. And again, this is one of those things that I think we should be leading. We shouldn't be sitting
It's a
behind.
great idea. Yeah.
So again, we want teachers, we want to train them, we want to build our own. And now I'm working on a teaching assistant apprenticeship program that I think has a ton of possibilities. And that would be high school students taking a course at the high school in education, maybe working in the afternoons in elementary classrooms, signing on, completing all the workshops and requirements for a teaching assistant. So they graduate from high school. We hire them as teaching assistants to become teaching assistant apprenticeships. That qualifies them for $6,000 worth of SUNY tuition. And so what a benefit. And we're already hired. They're already hired as a teaching assistant coming right out of high school. So that's a new pathway. That's something that I think will take 2 years, but something I hope to accomplish before I retire.
I think that's a great legacy item, right?
Yeah, those two pieces I'm very proud of because it took some ingenuity. It took risk taking to have a resident and have an apprentice, but both of them individuals have worked out so well. Again, I'm thrilled to have them here. And they're both Hilton alumni. So I think it kind of giving back to the community too.
100%. Yes. A couple more questions before we wrap up. What's one HR myth you wish you want to debunk for good?
That HR is bad, right? When budget cuts were happening over the past couple months, as I was walking through schools, people were turning quickly into their classroom, avoiding eye contact. And that's the last thing. If anything, I wanted to reassure people that we were going to get through this.
Right.
And again, yes, we asked some people to go back to classrooms and do different roles. But the fact that everyone will pay their mortgage, the fact that everyone will pay their rent, that's something that's really important to me. I think, and again, we made it through an incredibly difficult budget that I would say half of Monroe County is going to lay off some, again, depending on what types of employees, but we won't have any layoffs. And again, that's an important piece because, again, and now I think it's continuing to strategize what attrition can we expect in the future? What retirements can we expect in the future? Do we need to replace those positions? And that's something that we'll be paying close attention to over the next year because we know next year will be another very, very difficult budget year. And at the same time, you've seen the numbers. Our student enrollment is, I think we'll be in the 250s next year at kindergarten. And so we'll graduate, I think 337, and we might take in 257, if not 247. Man. So that's 80 or 90 students down. So with less students, you need to lower the amount of staff members at the same rate that your student enrollment goes down. Otherwise, you end up in budget problems. And so over the past 2 years, we've made those very difficult decisions to not replace people. They've come with a cost. We know that. But at the same time, we're still trying to do the best job we can with students, provide them an amazing opportunity, which they get here in Hilton. Because again, teachers like yourself who go the extra distance for kids, that is just going to be so important. But again, some of that's going to come down with the staff trusting the executive team to make those decisions and work with the administrators, although they're going to be tough. Next year won't be any easier than it was this year. if not tougher.
1 year at a time.
Yep, exactly. Every year's different.
One more question and a couple fun ones. If you could give one piece of advice to new HR managers, what would it be?
Listen, just listen sometimes. Take that extra minute and listen. I can remember going around at the end of the day. I used to do this habit when I was principal, kind of go around at the end of the day and see who was still at work. And so it'd be 5 o'clock. Teacher day ended at 3:25. And so if you were there at 5 o'clock, I'm telling you to go home. Because I think it's important that you pay attention. And that for me was a dipstick of stress. I wanted to pay attention to who was still there. Now, some people felt like, hey, I can't get there early in the morning to set up my classroom. I do it the night before. But knowing that about your staff to me was so important, and something that, I have to say one of the most rewarding parts of my career has been Hill. But I have to say that the staff that I had in Spencerport at Cosgrove Middle School for principals 11 years, partly because I cared so much about them individually and wanted to make sure they had a great experience, wanted to make sure that they were felt supported by the administrative team. But again, sometimes it takes me as the principal walk around and pay attention to and listen. Because if they're still there at 5 o'clock, why? Did they have a bad day? Did they make a tough phone call? Who was the phone call with? Let me take care of this. I can do this for you. Oh, you need copies? I'll run it down. And because we had a copy center in Spencerport that we had used, and I always had to sign off. So I would take their copy requests just as I was walking through. Simple thing. They appreciate it because then that means they didn't have to start their day by going to the office.
I remember one time when I don't know, I was having a rough time or whatever, and you and Casey came by, and I'm like, oh, this whiteboard, right? And you're like, Mike, you do that.
Yeah.
You got,
You can move it.
I can move it back to the same. And I'm saying it was something really small.
Well, but
you
remember,
listened and you got it done.
You're sitting on 23 kids in a classroom. You got, you're teaching all day long, but the changes, they happen to us. And so sometimes we get so locked down. And again, that's not a fault of your own, but it just took what did it take? 10 minutes to show it to Casey and myself.
Yeah, it was done the next day.
We made a couple phone calls, and again, it was a simple fix, but something that was important to you because it made your teaching everyday world better.
And it was something so simple.
Yeah.
All right. A couple of I like to ask some favorites of my guests. What's your favorite food?
I'm probably going to say a good cheeseburger.
Good cheeseburger?
Good cheeseburger. You can't beat it.
Is there any particular restaurant you like it from? I'm not going to go buy you one, but
yeah, no, I it really has depended. The smash burger phenomena has not been healthy to my diet.
Yeah.
But something that, speaking of health, it's something that I don't know if you know about our streak. You know about our streak?
Tell me about it.
So a while back in 2024, I said to Casey, we got to start walking. So that summer I started walking, and I went out, got the Apple Watch, and every morning since September 6th, 2024, Casey and I have walked at least 2 to 3 to 5 miles every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, till now. So I think we're at almost 700 days.
It's working because both of them
that we've walked before, typically before school. So I walk outside. So when it's 11 below, I'm outside with my dog, walking every day in Irondequoit and up and down the streets. I live near the zoo. And so Casey says I just need to buy a treadmill. But he says, you got to quit walking outside because he would say, how was your walk? I saw it was 5 below. And I was like, dog and I just finished. Sometimes it's not as quick when there's 8-10 inches of snow out there, but we got it done. And we've been doing it since the last time I must have just not have documented was September 6th, 2024 is the last time. I don't have a record of us walking.
All right. So the streak
is alive.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it. So it allows you to eat your cheeseburger.
Yeah. So when I have that cheeseburger, I have a tough day at work, eat the cheeseburger.
How about favorite movie or movies? Sometimes it's hard to pick just one.
So I'm a big golf guy. So I love Caddyshack. I love some of the old Stripes, Bill Murray in the day. Uncle Buck. It's a absolute classic. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Again, just an absolute slap shot.
Oh
As a
yeah.
hockey guy.
Yeah.
Bull Durham.
Yep.
Definitely one of my favorites.
Did you watch the Masters this past?
Loved the Masters. Yeah. Actually, my neighbor went last year. Every year I sign up for tickets. I don't know if you know, you can apply for lottery tickets. My neighbor got the lottery tickets last year.
You didn't take it?
He did not take me, but I gave him $40 for a hat, which is the closest thing I've seen.
Did it cover it?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought
Yeah.
it might help cover the bill.
yeah, just barely, but it's great. And again, I've been fortunate. Miracle's another the
Yeah.
1980 Olympic story. So I have kind of a side story on this. So my brother does, as I've told you, my brother does very well. He works for a great law firm called Roskauer. They represent Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL. My brother was the lawyer for the Pittsburgh Penguins years ago when Mario Lemieux bought the team. And so he was the attorney representing the owner, who was Roger Marino at the time. And so my brother's done very well. He joined a very exclusive golf course out near his beach house towards Cape Cod. And so first time I went, I walked up and we were hitting balls on the range, getting ready for our match. And my brother said, "Hey, I want you to meet a friend of mine." He says, "Jim, this is my brother Ned." And he said, "Oh, gosh, yeah, you're Sharky's kid's principal." And I said, "Sharky is Craig Sharon, who used to be the Rochester Amherst, used to play for the Rochester Amherst." And he says, "Wendy told me all about you." And so Wendy was Craig Sharon's wife, and he happened to be Spencerport's hockey coach. And who I'm talking about is Jim Craig, the 1980 Olympic goalie. And so, so Jim Craig is a member at my brother's club, and he is an absolute delight. He is an amazing person, leader.
Wow.
But again, a pleasure to have. But while we were hitting balls that day, my brother's son was probably, I'm going to guess, 12, 13. And my brother said, "Colin, come here. I want you to meet my friend." And she says, "Mr. Craig, this is my son, Colin." And Colin, very shy, just walked up and shook his hand. And he says, "Colin," he says, "you know this guy." She's like, "Dad, I'm sorry." He said, "Sir, I'm sorry, I don't know you." And he says, "Colin, he's the goalie from Miracle." Well, Jim's probably 60 years old.
Right.
And in the movie, he's 22.
Right.
And he says, no, this is the real goalie from Miracle. And it was funny to watch. He's like, "Really? You're the goalie from the 1980?" Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a great time. I go out for a great golf tournament every year. The head coach of the San Jose Sharks is a member there. The old Chicago Blackhawks and Hartford Whalers, when they were on, Dave Andrews was the general manager at the time. He's a member, and we've played with him multiple times. Just a super guy. So again, lucky in our lives.
Are you any good at golf?
Love golf.
You love it.
I love it. I
handicap?
got down to about a 12 last
That's
year.
pretty good.
I was playing pretty well. Had a couple. I've had played Saturday. Had a good run.
Where do you play around here?
I belong to Mill Creek.
Okay.
Public course. I love it. I love the track. It's the highest point in Rochester. It's a fun fact. Very difficult links course. So we'll see. It was pretty cold and blustery at the top of the hill last Saturday.
Do they allow carts, or do they have to?
No, they do allow carts, but you can walk. As a member, you can walk.
Favorite TV show?
Right now, The Pit.
Is it the medical show?
Yes,
Okay.
it's just like ER.
I think Noah Wiley's in
Noah
it.
Wiley's still, yeah. Oh yeah, he's super talented. And so my wife and I like watching it because when we met, when I came back from Bowling Green and started to work at was going to St. John Fisher, I was able to get a job developing X-rays and working in the emergency room in the X-ray department. So I would transport people back and forth, with broken hips and everything, car crashes, gunshots, and I would help the X-ray technician set up. That's where my wife and I met at Rochester General. We were both transport / we developed X-rays. We helped with ultrasounds, CAT scans, and again, any like radiology type of appointment. We assisted the techs.
Love in the X-ray room.
Yeah, and I loved it. That's actually when you developed X-ray film. So we would go in the dark room, develop the film, run it back over for a gunshot victim. It was a great talk about another great learning experience. just another great learning experience.
Do you have any other jobs before you got into education? I mean, clearly that's one.
I'll tell you, Casey just asked that the other day. What was your first job and what did you learn from it? So my first job was in 8th grade, and I think I'd shared, my parents were already split up by this time. And so I walked across the street to Ostrom Farms, and I worked on the farm. I picked beans. I hoed hundreds of acres of corn, and I loved the job. I made $1.75 an hour to work on the farm. But when beans were ready, you could, if you picked a quart, for every quart you got 50 cents per quart. Well, I could crank out about 8 quarts in an hour, so I could make $4 an hour. And she used to say, hey, today's a day, if you pick as many, when beans were full and ready, you got to get them out. And so we all were motivated to make as much money as possible. We would do it. I would do it for 12 hours, just bent over picking beans. And again, I think what still to this day, it goes back to my mother teaching us work ethic, that if you want something, because when your parents split up, it really does a number on you financially. Certainly did a number on us financially. And so I wanted things that my friends had. I'm living in Webster, but we just didn't have the money. And so it taught me that if you want something, you got to work hard for it and earn it. And I've tried to pass that along to my kids now.
Sounds like a great lady.
Something that, like I said, my mom definitely, my brother's a crazy attorney. My sister's a doctor. I'm doing okay. I don't know if I'm doing as well as they are, but I'm doing okay. And again,
HR is pretty good.
The HR's, again, I'm fortunate to work in so many great districts. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do to relax?
So I have to say, walking has changed me. I am down since I've started in Hilton, probably about 65, 70 pounds.
Congrats, man.
But I also think it is, I would say there's multiple reasons. Walking helps before you work, because if you don't walk before you work, you don't walk. Or you don't actually, you don't go to, I tease everybody. I say, I go to Planet Fatness. I go to Planet Fatness and I do what I can there. But if you don't do it, you're not going to do it, because when you get home at 6:30, 7 o'clock, maybe I stop at a game on my way home. I do love going to see kids in Hilton play sports. If I stop at a basketball game, I'm not going to the gym. I just know myself better. Being 54, I'm not going to trick myself into thinking next week I'm going to the gym at 8:30 at night. It's just not going to happen. So I'm an early riser, so get up at 4:45 every day, walk the dog, and he loves it as much as I do. So I would say walking and golf for me. When I retire, I hope to play a lot of golf year round. This 4 or 5 month thing is not enough for me.
What's your dog's name? What's its breed?
Penny is, and I call it's Benedict Arnold, and I can tell you the side story behind it.
I'd love to hear it.
So we unfortunately put a chocolate lab down, and Cooper was a good dog, and so if you remember, you may remember this at the time. Stoneman Douglas was a high school in Florida where they had a shooting on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And it was a terrible day as a principal. Kids were scared, adults were scared, teachers were scared. Half of probably the parents in Spencerport picked up their kid that day. They were very nervous. And then I had to go home, and unfortunately I had to put down my dog.
Oh.
So Dave Kayasa, who's one of my best friends, Dave says to me, and he came over, had dinner before we went to a different event that night. And he says, girls, I'm so sorry that the house is quiet without Cooper. And my daughter looked at Dave and said, Mr. Kayasa, it's okay. My mom already ordered another dog. So I said, I call him Benedict Arnold because he's based on a lie. They never told me. He's a an English cream golden retriever. And he is the best. I didn't want to like him, Mike. I did not want to like this dog. He is friendly. He's never eaten anything but his toys. He is amazing. Amazing dog.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book? It could be a self-help. It could be.
It's right over there. The Last Lecture.
By who?
By Randy Pausch. Yep. Randy was a guy who got terminal cancer. And he talks about what's truly important in life. And so, boy, if you get a minute to read that book, and there's actually, he was a professor and he did his last lecture. It's a most powerful hour and I think 10 minutes you will watch on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. It is absolutely for any of your listeners that, want to be humbled and yet inspired at the same time. The book is equally great. It sits right over there. So I was going to say the 100 Ways to Love the Red Sox, but I didn't know if that was going to go over well.
It might be great.
It might get edited on the podcast.
Favorite quote?
Be kind.
Be kind. I've seen that on a lot of people's emails. Just about, I know Marcy Garner does it.
Yeah. Be kind. Right. I think what do we miss sometimes? And I go back to the story I told you earlier of losing a staff member who took his own life that I had spoken to for 15 minutes in the hallway. You never know what people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what that kid in your classroom is going through, what he went through in the morning. He might not know what you have gone through that morning. So be kind. Be kind. You can't regret being kind.
Mm-hmm.
When you're short with people, when you're curt with people, when you question their integrity, you're gonna regret. You might regret that.
Right.
But when you're kind to someone, you never have to worry about taking that back.
Good words. 3 people from history you'd like to go to dinner with. Could be relative.
That's a great question. So it could be a relative. I would ask that I had one more dinner with my mom. Again, she was just such a special lady to me. Elton John is a guy who, again, I love his music. So 1970s, 80s, early Elton John is something that I love. An acoustical piano. I think I told you music is something that's so important to me. And then I think I would probably want to, I really want to meet with Bill Buckner in the 1986 Boston Red Sox.
The guy that
he missed that ball going down first base, and he was humble and was threatened. And I always wanted to just say to him, it's okay. I remember watching that game thinking, we're going to win the World Series. The Red Sox are finally going to win the World Series. The fact that we had to wait so many more years, but that 1986 World Series against the Mets, I was 15. I don't think I missed a pitch or an inning or anything. Well, there was only 3 channels on back then, by the way. For those who are listeners, 3 channels. That's all there was. Those 3, I think someone from the Red Sox, Elton John, even like a Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, I'd love to, listen to their stories.
This quote, coachability and integrity are everything for me. Who said that?
I don't know. I hope it was me.
It was you.
Because that for me is what I hope every person thinks that I'm approachable and that I have integrity. You might not like what I say, by the way, but I'm never going to lie to you. My career is not worth lying over. My losing integrity is not worth lying over. So,
well, Ned, thank you so much for being my guest here on the Big H podcast. Getting to know you and your history has been very informative. And I thank you for your contribution to the Hilton Central School District.
No, lucky to be here.
Yeah.
Very much.
To my audience, if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. It's free. And then turn on your notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can tune in to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and Rumble at the Big H Podcast. I'm always looking for more guests, and you can email me at thebighpodcast@gmail.com if interested. Ned, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks again, Mike. Go Cadets.
Go Cadets. Keep up the good work.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll